Thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview. How are you doing?
Yo, thanks for having me. I'm doing good. I'm excited. I mean, we're 1 week out till the new album coming out, so I mean, I'm very excited and anxious. I've been waiting a long time for this one, so it's pretty sick.
Yeah, how long actually have you been sitting on this album? Because I know that with the pandemic, there's been with some bands quite delays and such.
Yeah, I don't think we were as delayed as most bands were. I think we turned it in at like literally maybe perfect timing. I think we turned it in like a few months, 3 or 4 months before our first tour. So, and our first tour was like right around when things were kind of opening up around here. So it was all timed really well. And with the fact that we were able to put out a single, introduce new members, go on a tour, show everybody, and then spend a few more months at home promoting it, with what Nuclear Blast is doing. And then of course we all have like Twitch streams and our, social media stuff. So I think it worked well. I didn't feel like we were ever like waiting. It was just a regular amount of waiting for, like the label to process it and all the distribution and all the vinyl, which seems to be taking longer and longer every year or whatever. But I know the pandemic slowed that down, the vinyl production and stuff. But mostly, yeah, that's the only thing that made us wait. But for the most part, it wasn't like we finished it and had to wait like years or anything. But yeah,
Yeah,
we did have to
well,
wait like nearly felt like 8 or 9 months after it was just like totally done and it was off my hands or whatever. It was just like, damn, it's a long time.
yeah, and I guess when you're sitting on something which includes also a new lineup and waiting 8 months, that might really suck.
Oh, it does. It feels like the whole world is looking at an old version of yourself. You know what I mean? And you're just like sitting here, like, bro, come on, you guys don't even know. Like, we're over here, but you guys don't know. But I don't know. It just takes time.
Yeah.
You got to be patient.
Yeah, I guess you only announced a new lineup in April or so when you released your
Yeah,
first single. But it seems
yeah.
like
April
fans are,
27th.
yeah, it seems like fans are really embracing, Evan and Kyle to be part of this, new chapter for the band. So
For
how
sure.
has the search been, how has the whole process been in finding the right members?
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah. I mean, I'd be surprised if they didn't embrace Evan, man. Like that guy's so talented and just so good at what he does. It's crazy. I'd be like, what do you not like? But yeah, luckily, but not really that surprising. People are really liking Kyle's vocals. That guy is super talented, and that was like the main thing that kind of attracted us to him. And it was just his pure talent. I mean, the way he's from the Bay Area, which that's where we all grew up from, and the way I got to know him was I was asked to do a guest solo on one of his records for his band Archaeologist, and once I heard his music, I was like, "Whoa, what's this?" It's not every day that you hear music that's so good, but it's not signed to like a major record label, got the touring. It's almost like when you hear quality music, you could be like, "Oh, this band's doing something." You check it out, and of course they're trying to make it happen or whatever. For him, it was almost like he took it very seriously and he tried to make the most of it, but it was closer to like a hobby than a career or whatever. So he just has like this pure passion for music. Like nothing can stop the guy from writing music. It's like even if he's making tons of money do it or no money at all, or if he's super busy or not busy, he just always finds the time to make music. And the music sounds very like I instantly kind of was into it. I think it maybe it's just he uses a lot of chromatic major seven chords or whatever, and that's like kind of something we do. So it's like instantly the styles already matched up. So I just became a huge fan of his style. And then when we needed a vocalist, it was kind of towards the end of me finishing the song structures or whatever. So it was kind of getting urgent. But you know, like the whole theme of this album is it has to be our best work. It has to be the hardest we've ever worked on an album. Like we really need to make a statement with this one. And finding a vocalist, we had to, I just knew that I had to take my time and make sure it was somebody that would absolutely do the job to the best ability. And like we can't just get somebody just to simply move forward and get to the studio or whatever. That'd be a bad choice. So yeah, we definitely took our time auditioning people. I mean, I auditioned like 15 different people and I really did it slow. You know what I mean? I like put them through a bunch of tests. I started them off with just the first I gave them an old song without vocals and see if they can kind of emulate the old style and maybe see what they do on their own. Like what do they bring on their own? That eliminated a bunch of people. And Kyle absolutely killed that one. So the next step was I sent him one of the songs I had finished for the new album. And usually I kind of write out phrasing for vocalists. I kind of will do like a funny whisper track over it, kind of pretend like I'm all sick. But it's the purpose just to like kind of get the motifs and like the accents, like give them an example so they know how intense it's supposed to be, or maybe how laid back it's supposed to be, and how it's not supposed to mess with these accents, or just way less back and forth if you just do that. You just kind of send them a demo. There's like 10 times less questions. And for this, I just decided let's see what he does on his own. I want to see how he writes his own phrasing. And he sent me back what is now the song Soul Breaker. And he took like literally one day. I think I sent it to him like late at night. And then the next morning, I think he started working on it. And either that night or the next morning, he sent me a track like, dude, I was just super hyped at the opportunity. I just like I put together lyrics and phrasing on that song that you sent me, and I was listening to it. And I had already had my demo tracks of what I thought would have been good ideas or whatever, and I listened to his, and it was just way better than anything I could think of. It was way more tense and intense and musical, and he just really had like an instinct for like fitting in the space of the music, where that is usually where I butt heads a lot when I'm trying to figure out the phrasing for this stuff. Is just like, people have their ideas. Maybe it stems from like the lyric they want to get in there, but like I'm just hearing accents like interrupting other accents. I'm like, no, that's getting in the way. And like there was not really any of that with him. It's pretty good. Maybe it's just his experience with music, or maybe he just gets it. I don't know. But that was like the first surprise from him, was just like, wow, like this guy, the music, like the phrasing he writes works perfectly. It's way better than anything I could think of. It's like really bringing this to life, instead of just me repeating phrases over and over throughout different instruments or whatever. And so he killed it. He's super dynamic. The way he could sing, he could like belt out sing. I mean, when I saw it in person, I was like, yeah, this is the real deal. Like he's truly a vocalist at heart that learned how to do brutal vocals. And I think he'd been learning brutal vocals for the last 2 or 3 years. Singing is his main thing. And I think we kind of like finished his process working on this album, because I wanted more like false chord, brutal stuff, and that he wasn't used to that. So he kind of put in the work, totally developed a sound. Like another surprise. Like you hit up most people, it's hard for them to change in the moment, try to squeeze more out of them. But like the guy just puts in so much work into things that he could like kind of pull off ideas that you ask him to do. And yeah, every point in the album, the guy just put in the work. He never shied away from the work, even if he had to work all day and we couldn't meet up till 11 p.m. or midnight, when we were just going to Zoom till 3 or 4 in the morning, and he had to get up for work at 8 or 9 the next day. Like we made it happen. We did it multiple nights in a row. So yeah, I feel really lucky we found this guy, just because of the amount of work he put into it, like the amount of talent he has. And he just definitely was a huge part of bringing this album to life and making it feel like a collaboration between multiple musicians. Because sometimes, one guy can kind of like take over and write all the songs, and it's just kind of what you have to do out of necessity, but not on this record. Everybody kind of like put forth their inspiration. Evan, Kyle, Andrew, like we all kind of came together, and it's really cool. It makes the record feel a lot different than the other records to me personally.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned about the phrasing. I was wondering, did you feel at all like you lost some control, maybe unintentionally?
I don't think so. I never felt like that, just because I was looking for somebody to take it and bring it to life. And as I'm watching that happen, I'm just so excited to see that. I'm just like, yes, that it goes from something that was like a pre-production file where I had to like tediously put these riffs together, and like, I see the band-aids all over the song. You know what I mean? I see like when I'm listening to the song listening to the song after working on it, I'm hearing, oh, that transition was difficult to figure out. And like, oh yeah, does that still work? I'm like, in my brain, it's not like this, like, it's not like when you finish it, it's like, that's the song and I'm totally confident in it or whatever. And just having somebody with fresh ears come onto it, and kind of maybe there's some stuff on there that you thought was a problem that nobody thinks is a problem. Everybody's into it. You know what I mean? And then there's stuff that you thought was a problem, and then they also pick up on that. Like, yeah, you notice this part, it's kind of feels like it's missing some momentum or something. And I'm like, yes, dude, thank you. Because the album's huge. It's like 55 minutes. I'm kind of balancing all 10 tracks, trying to make sure, instead of like doing one at a time linearly, okay, this is fully done, let's move on to the next one. It's kind of, no, it's kind of like a garden of songs, you know what I mean? I'm kind of growing them all at once, and we're at the last stages, so you're kind of like wrapping up little stuff on everything. And it's really easy to miss stuff if you're working on it by yourself. But if you have like everybody in the band super engaged with the process, they're catching things you didn't catch, they're bringing up ideas that maybe you didn't think of, maybe if you had more time you would have thought of. So to me, it's like, it's just like an awesome thing to see. And as far as control, I guess, like I was talking to this to a friend of mine, where I feel like with the pandemic and the amount of time we had, and also kind of like our mission with this album, like we were really wanted to put out our best work, and make sure it was undeniably like one of our best records, and kind of set the precedent for moving forward with like this next era and with the lineup. So we really took our time with everything, where records before that, it was kind of like, a tour is coming up, we got to get this done or else it won't come out at this time, and then we won't get these tours, and then we're not gonna have a career or whatever. So it's like super urgent. And when we write out music, it's literally, we write that part, and we don't write that part unless we know it's going to be on the record. You know what I mean? We put the thought into it to be like, is this going to be good enough to spend our time on it? So pretty much everything is just kind of like write and move on, and write and move on. And then you get the song, and like, that's a song. Like the only chance I would get to like kind of make it a little bit better, or like kind of fix some things that I heard during the pre-pro, is during that moving from pre-pro to actually recording it on the album. I'll be like, I'll take notes, and then when it's time to record, I'll just change it right there in the moment or whatever. And that was my way of kind of like, refining it a little bit. But with this record, we were able to, pick, instead of just writing 10 songs for a 10-song album, we were able to write 15 songs for a 10-song album, pick 10 based on like how the momentum and the feel of the album would be. Like, is it gonna, like, do we want this album to be very riffy and fast, or do we want it to be very like slow and atmospheric? And we could have like taken out 3 songs and put in a different 3 songs, and it would change the balance of the music. So we were really trying to control that, like, because I think that you lose control of that, you kind of all of a sudden the album's finished and you're like, oh wow. So it ended up being kind of like a riffy record, or ended up kind of being like a more atmospheric record. And we didn't want that to happen. We wanted to have full control over that. And then same thing with the songs. We were able to take the songs, and it's like, we've been working on it for a while already, but there's no tours coming up. I mean, there's the only thing that's kind of coming up is our deadline we set on ourselves to hit the studio. So, because that can get out of hand if we wait too long. But we would take the songs and we'd be like, yeah, I think right here, the momentum just feels a little like it's good enough, but it's like we could do better. And we would delete entire parts, make an entire new part. And when you do that, I never regret doing that, because you always come up with something cooler. You know what I mean? It's something a little bit more that fits for the song. And we were able to do that for all the songs. So to me, when I listen to the record, it just feels like every little issue I had, every little problem with momentum or the dynamics of the song was all cleared up, and it came out exactly how we wanted it, because I literally can't even think of anything I would change about it. You know what I mean? So compared to the other records, I felt like we really had control on this thing, where other records, you start growing these songs, and at a certain point, you can't really change them because you would ruin the songs. It's like they became their own thing, and you're just like their guide. You know what I mean? You're just kind of nurturing them into the best versions of what they could be, kind of. So yeah, hopefully that answers what you're asking.
Yeah, you mentioned, of course, the dynamics of the album, and I did feel like the vocals were extremely dynamic in this record, but also the music, especially if you compare like the 2 last tracks of the album, you have such a like intense second to last track. I forgot the name now, and then
Celestial Resonance.
Yeah, that one, and then it ends with Artifacts, which felt so atmospheric. So how much time do you actually spend on the order of these tracks to make it like flow right, like you mentioned?
Sure. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, there was kind of a vision with the flow of the tracks, actually, because the album it's called Empyrean, and it kind of all came together at once, as we're trying to figure out what we want the message of the music to be. And like, I think the band's always been kind of more into the idea of like inputting like more emotional concepts that we relate to personally, so the music feels real to us, but not so just vague enough to where other people could understand it. You know what I mean? And maybe maybe our problems that could be trivial fit into these metaphors, but people that have, you know, real problems and stuff they're dealing with, it can also fit into them or whatever. So the whole idea about Empyrean is this higher place, this highest heaven, you know what I mean? This highest level of heaven. It's very ethereal, very atmospheric. It already gives you like this imagery of, you know, some flying through, I don't know, celestial dust or whatever, like, and I wanted the album to kind of feel like a journey into Empyrean, basically, and we structured the songs and the lyrics to kind of feel like that was your journey. Like even you can almost get a taste of it with the song names. Like the first song is called "The Bitter Taste of Clarity," and it's kind of like, you know what I mean. It's like the realization. It's like the frantic cognizance. I think that's the first lyrics, frantic cognizance. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that panic, like when you wake up realizing like you're in a situation, you're in a downward spiral, you know, you're in something that is not good and you've kind of been letting it happen or whatever, or it's happened to you, and it's time to put in the work to change things. It's time to go through whatever the pain is, you know what I mean? And it starts with like a realization, and the music kind of matches that. It kind of starts as just a white wall of noise without details, right? Like the way the music comes in, it's just like, you know what I mean? It's just blasting you, and then the music slowly kind of forms into something. The first riff doesn't have any space. It goes from this wall of sound, kind of static black metal blast, into like a beat, but there's no space in between the riffing and the guitars. And then that develops into kind of a break beat, which now it's like gone from static to like a riff to like an actual formed riff with spacing. And then I start adding details in the right speaker and left speaker, and like slowly growing into this thing, and then it explodes into the chorus with the message. You know what I mean? And I kind of, like, for me, that just helps make music instead of just trying to pull something from nothing. I like to like imagine something in my head, like a journey or kind of something developing. And then once I have a concept like that, it's like the song kind of writes itself. You just kind of have to like push it along. So yeah, the music goes from the bitter taste of clarity, and that's very dark sounding, very like mean sounding, and kind of like it kind of matches the lyrics. And you go into radiant ascension, which is also like, you know what I mean? It's like the emergence kind of thing. It's like a little bit more triumphant, but it's still very, very riffy, very tight feeling. And I feel like as you keep going through the songs, I'm trying to like open the songs up more. And it's kind of cool that you said like the last two tracks, they seem so huge and atmospheric, because that's like you're there, you know what I mean? You're like flying up with the eagles soaring. So like there's parts that maybe on the earlier songs, like Artifacts, or Tori's vocals come back in. It's just like this huge heavy atmosphere. Maybe if that was an earlier track, that would just been a moment, but like on that, I knew it's the end, so we doubled it. It's twice as long. It's like super huge. There's like crazy atmosphere going. You know what I mean? So yeah, it was definitely as we were growing the songs, we actually knew the order of the songs, and that was something that we on other albums. It was kind of like you kind of make it look like that. You know what I mean? You take the songs that you have and you kind of rearrange them to where it fits right. And you're like, okay, that's a good flow. Where this one, like 6 months before we even started recording the guitars, we're like, this is the intro of the album, and this is somewhere in the middle. This is going to be the last song of the album. And so when we're making it, like, you know, we're making choices based off of that. So yeah, the flow was definitely super important to what we were doing.
In that sense, what came sort of first, you know, the order of the songs? Did that inspire the title of the record, or was it the other way around?
Did the order of the songs inspire the title of the record? I think what inspired the title of the record was the lyrical concepts that we kind of constructed. You know what I mean? It's not like we knew the order of the songs based off their tones. You know what I mean? Because I knew like the bitter taste of clarity. And before they had their names, I don't know if you know Elder Scrolls Skyrim, but I basically named all the songs after dragon priests out of from that video game or whatever. So I know them as all these dragon priest names. I keep forgetting the real names or whatever, but we knew them based on tones. We knew like, okay, that first song, The Bitter Taste, was going to be, it's really dark. That belongs in the beginning of the album. You know what I mean? And this stuff belongs at the end of the album. And then there's like, we were constructing lyrical concepts kind of separate from all of that. Like these are the kind of things we want to talk about. Like we want to be able to, you know, concepts of like wanting to get to a better place, but having to deal with like psychological obstacles. Sometimes it's not even external obstacles. It's just stuff within ourselves preventing us from moving forward. You know what I mean? Like, you know, personifying like doubt and whatnot, or whatever. We just had all these concepts, and then we were able to kind of like you know, because a couple concepts could have been the third song or the fifth song or whatever, but we were trying to match the lyrics and the subject to the mood of the song as well, because you know, and a lot of the subjects were created when we were sitting on like Zoom calls, listening to the song and just discussing like, what does the song make you feel? Like, you know what I mean? And kind of getting creative from that instead of trying to insert something that already exists into the music. You know what I mean? Because I really like when everything, you know, matches up. You know what I mean? And like who's a dude that does that? Like Devin Townsend. Like it's like you listen to him the way he speaks about music. He lets the music kind of like inspire him. You know what I mean? I know he creates it, but he kind of lets it inspire him back. And you know what I mean? He's like, what am I hearing? Like, what am I? If someone, if this is another artist, what am I imagining they're saying to a song like this? And it kind of helps you, you know, get to where you need to go with it. So yeah.
Yeah, it was actually also interesting that you mentioned Skyrim, because you posted some days ago, or maybe even today, I don't remember, a solo that you were practicing of one of the songs of the album.
Oh
And
yeah.
I really had like a vibe, like if you take it out of context, something, it could be like, game music or something
Oh
like that.
sure. Yeah,
But
yeah.
that's something that inspires you, like game soundtracks and all that things.
Oh, big time. I'm as a kid, my favorite game was Zelda, and the music in that series is very unique. It's like Japanese like fusion mixed with like classical music or whatever. And I'm also a huge fan of a genre called city pop. Like I really like this artist named Tatsuro Yamashita, and it's like it sounds like pop music. It sounds happy, but there's super subtle chord changes and key changes that happen that give you that kind of like video game kind of Japanese sound to it or whatever. And it's like subtle, but you know you've heard it before. And I love pulling from styles like that. You know what I mean? Like I mean, I don't know if we'll have any you know, nerds, you know, listening to it, but like there's intermodal changing where you're like, you know, you're in a key and then you play a chord that's in the same key, but it's a different mode, and you're kind of inserting different modal sounds into your music, and it just has this just wacky kind of future wild sound to it, and I love it. And of course, they use it in video games. They want it to feel otherworldly, you know what I mean? And like that's what I think the message, not the message of the band, but that's kind of what the band does. It kind of emulates like sci-fi movies and like that really immersive kind of like feeling that you get from playing a video game or watching like a huge sci-fi movie or something. So yeah, for sure. That's cool that you picked that up because I love having that like kind of nearly like happy, almost not like goofy, but you know what I mean? It's almost like video games. Like it's like very happy sounding and like
Yeah,
Kirby or
exactly.
something. I don't know, or Final Fantasy or
Yeah.
people were saying Mega Man. I kept getting Mega Man comments on my Instagram. I was like, all right.
Yeah, and it's actually, I think with solos like that, it sort of breaks a little bit with the intensity of the music as well, because everything is sort of very, very technical, of course, being the genre you're in. So how much time do you actually spend on writing solos, or does it go more naturally, like you're just noodling on your guitar a little bit?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've kind of developed like a thing with my solos on like the fastest way to get them done and also make them sound natural. You know what I mean? Luckily, I've not only been able to do solos, you know, for the band or whatever, but I for a while I was doing a lot of guest solos for people, so I got a lot of practice. But it's almost like I kind of like to start with just like singing over it. It sounds silly, but you know what I mean. You want the solo to come natural. You don't want it to be like too jarring. Like you save the jarring stuff for like maybe the verses and stuff, so where you're trying to like, you know, subvert expectations. But I feel like solos, they got to just like slip right into your ear and feel really natural. So I kind of start with like singing melodies or something like that. It starts with the melody, and then I see where after the fact, see where I can insert like the fast, you know, cool melodic, flashy stuff. And usually that flashy melodic stuff just sticks within the chord progression of whatever melody I was trying over it. So it didn't take me too long, but I'll say that on this record, I really made a point to make some of the craziest solos I've ever done. And also, like, I mean, the solo in Radiant Ascension, I remember finishing writing that and being like, fuck, what am I getting myself into? This is like I'm gonna be dealing with this on tour for like 10 years. Like, wow. But I don't know, you can't be scared. Like I want to push it to the next level. So this for the solos on this record for sure, I was like trying to push myself as hard as I can and make something as intense as possible. And but also not just like, you know, I want it to feel like like, you know, kind of like a fusion, like there's emotion in it as well as like cool, flashy, fast stuff in there. So yeah, solos are pretty nuts on this record. I've been having
Yeah.
to rehearse them for next week.
Yeah, that's gonna be, yeah. Speaking of like live shows and such, like there's a lot of bands out there who create songs that they'll never be able to play live, but it seems like all the songs you write, with what you mentioned, you should be able to play live, or
Oh yeah.
intention.
Yeah, I mean that's what helps us make the music too. A lot of the time we're like, fuck, what's supposed to go next here? A lot of time it's either like we're continuing with like a concept, like we said, like an imaginary visualization, or you know, sometimes I'll just close my eyes and imagine myself on a couple different stages. Like if I'm on, like, what is it like if I'm in a packed club? What does it feel like if I'm at like a festival stage? Like, what are those notes going to sound like blaring out? Like, because sometimes, you know, from experience, some stuff sounds really good in a club and it's like got a lot of energy, and then get to a bigger stage, some of that stuff sounds a little more washy, you know what I mean? And it's just like trying to use that imagination to help you like guide you like to what the riff is. So we're always thinking about the live show. So for sure, like all the songs is kind of like, is this going to bring the energy live? Is it going to make people stoked? Especially with this record. I don't think the last record we focused that on that too much. It was more about atmosphere and like space. And with this record, it was all about the live show. You know what I mean? What's going to bring the most intensity? Like what's going to keep the momentum up?
Yeah. Well, speaking of shows, you just also announced a European tour. So what can fans sort of expect on of that tour?
Ah, well, I'm so excited to go back to Europe. It's been so long, it's so sick. But yeah, I mean, expect us to play a lot of new songs. Like for us, this is a really important record, and I think it really kind of sets the bar for where we're at and like what we want to do moving forward. So expect to hear tons of new songs, and we'll probably sprinkle in some old favorites. But I would say the lineup we have right now is pretty phenomenal. It's pretty awesome to share a stage with these people and just to hear, you know, we'll record the show sometimes and just hearing it, it's just like, wow, this is really awesome. I feel really grateful to be with these musicians at this level. So I mean, I would say come see us. You expect to see some pretty crazy musicianship, and yeah, like Andrew, Kyle, like everybody's just at the top of their game right now. It's really cool. And not only that, everybody seems very inspired, enthusiastic, and grateful to be here because, you know, we all had it taken away. So it's like everybody's just bringing it super hard. I mean, at least that's how it was for the Rivers tour we just did. So I expect it to be totally the same for these next couple tours.
Yeah. Yeah, I know from a lot of European bands who go to America that there's like a lot of, issues with going on tour. So was it difficult for you guys to set this tour up in Europe the other way around?
I think that Europe it was a little bit more anxious. I mean, logistically, it's always a little bit harder to set up Europe, and there's a lot more risk. You know what I mean? Like with the flights and the merch and all that. And like, imagine if, luckily, we had a Mexico tour. Luckily in 2020 when the pandemic was going down, we were just coming home from a Europe tour, and we were starting our American stuff basically, and all the American got canceled. And luckily, I was kind of holding off on printing all of our merch because I was like, world is a little weird right now. What's going to happen? Let's wait to the absolute last minute before we like drop all this money on merch. And luckily, a couple days before our weird deadline we set, it was like, okay, everything's canceled. And I was like, oh my God, like we were so lucky. Like so many bands lost so much money because of stuff like that. So we were super lucky. But yeah, as far as setting up this, it was just kind of like everybody's just kind of waiting to see, you know, what the culture of Europe is going to be like with this. Because, you know, America's got our own thing, you know, I mean, we did it our own way, and this is where we're at in this whole process, whatever it is. So it's just kind of like, we're not European. We don't really know exactly what you guys are going through, and how, you know, it's kind of hard to like invest money and but not know. So we're kind of all just kind of like anxiously being very cautious. Everybody's just waiting for another band to do it first. You know what I mean? They're just like, you do it first, you know? And so I don't know. It was definitely a little more anxiety than the American tour. The American tour, luckily, and like went very, very smoothly. It was very awesome. And the crowd's really good. I've seen all those people. It was great. And all of our gear, it's mostly on us to make sure our van and trailer and all that stuff works. And all that worked after sitting in a lot for 2 years. So that was good. But yeah, this one was mostly just like like the politics of Europe and like how they want to decide to deal with, people from America coming over and like, but I'm prepared to deal with some shit to be able to play for you guys. So yeah, but it looks
Yeah.
like it's going okay.
Yeah. Well, I
Fingers
don't
crossed.
think, unfortunately, you're playing in Finland, but well, there's
Yeah,
another time, another
I
tour.
know we'll get there. I'll know we'll get there
Yeah.
eventually. Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
surprised the amount of support we have in Finland. I mean, we've only been there 2 or 3 times. We went with like Dying Fetus once, with Suffocation once. And it's always interesting taking that long ferry to Finland and then being in. It seems such a different world when I'm there. It's like such a different culture. I'm so fascinated with it. But it seems like based on some of our like statistics, like there's a lot of Fallujah fans in Finland. So I would hope we would get back there
Yeah.
soon. But
If there's any
that's a cool
booking
place.
agents listening, hopefully they'll bring you back, but let's see.
Avocado, let's go.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it for my questions, and I guess our time is up anyway. So do you have any last thoughts you want to share with your fans?
Uh, you know, uh, just hope you enjoy the record. We truly put a lot of work into this. We were trying to make our best work. We were trying to put together something that was, very impactful and hopefully resonate with it. But most importantly, I hope you enjoy it because it was made to do that. And pre-order the record if you can. If it's already out, go get that record. That's the best way you can support the band. Check out the tour dates. And if you're totally a sick fan and you want to support us even more, we just put up a Patreon. That's something we just kind of quietly put up there for people that want to support us. And if you want to come see us, all of us have Twitch. You know what I mean? We stream performances. Yesterday, I streamed myself recording a playthrough of one of the songs. Literally, you got to watch me set up the lighting and do all that stuff. And I'll even be bringing a stream backpack on this tour with Psychroptic. So if you want to literally hang out with me in the green room or even possibly see what it's like to be on stage looking at the crowd, you can check that out. We've got lots of stuff. I mean, the pandemic has really helped us, get our shit together when it comes to like interacting on the internet. So, I think we're more prepared than ever. So yeah, go get Empyrean. I hope you enjoy it. I think it's our best work yet for sure. And thank you for doing the interview. I appreciate it.